What's up, guys? I'm randomfrankp, and today we're going to be taking a look at and building the Beak 6.5 custom keyboard from Stylo Studios. So today I'll bring you through the whole build process and tell you my thoughts on the Beak 6.5. We'll go through the components I'll be using, all that stuff. Now, it's definitely a unique board with the Beak weight underneath and a large volume knob on the right side, but in terms of aesthetics, I really dig it. It's something different on the market, and I welcome any change and innovation. So first, a quick disclaimer, this is still a prototype of the board. It's currently in the group buy phase that's ending at the end of this week. So if you're interested in this, you want to pick it up, hop on it while you can. Now, before we begin, quick little modifications. With the Beak weight underneath, it's this heavy brass triangular piece that's held onto the frame by 3 screws. But to make it just pop a little more, I wanted to take it from its matte finish to a more glossy one. So I added a clear glaze layer to it. And while it's not even going to be seen 99% of the time, I realize that, I wanted to do it still, just to match the finish of my artisan Rama cap that I'll be using later on. Next up, I do have to desolder the PCB. Since this prototype was already built by Alex Odos, shout out to him, he did a build over on his Twitch channel. He and Stylo Studios worked it out where I'd be next in line to receive this build, but I wanted to start fresh with my own choice of switches. And let me tell you, this Hako desoldering tool is a lifesaver. I desoldered all 65 switches here in just under 7 minutes total. It melts the flux on the pins and instantly just sucks it up into the vacuum, and that's it. Takes like 3 seconds per pin. Now I can pop off the polycarbonate plate, and I've got a clean PCB to work with, but I will be keeping the stabilizers Alex already has installed here. These are Duroc V2s that are lubed with 205 grade 0, as well as dielectric grease added on the bar, so this will save me some time when I reuse these in the end. Switches that Alex used were cherry blacks that were lubed and filmed as well, so a heavier, smoother linear switch for sure. However, I've been really into tactiles recently, and I got these Pulsar black hole switches. That stock are already super smooth as it is and provide a nice tactile and audible bump to them that I've been in love with. I've always been team linear, but these are definitely making me switch. Comment down below, are you team linear, clicky, or tactile? And I don't even know when Pulsar is planning on releasing these, but stock, they do feel amazing. And visually, yes, they look identical to Gateron ink switches. Now, I was planning on using these stock, but I know with these keyboard videos, you need to go that extra mile in almost every regard, or else the trolls in the comment section will just rage like there's no tomorrow. So I did apply a very light sheen to the stem with some carbon GS1 grease from Kinetic Labs, and I also added a switch film as well, just to make it tighter and provide a little more thock. Just a little heads up, if Pulsar does release these, then take it from me. All the time that went into lubing and filming these switches results in a negligible difference. So yeah, they're that good already from the factory out of the bag. I wasted my time, so you don't have to waste yours. But honestly, that just speaks more to how good these are from Pulsar. Now next, I'm gonna add the corner switches to our polycarbonate plate so we can begin to solder those down, which is gonna provide the stability in all 4 corners, which will just make adding the rest of the switches that much easier. That does then lead me to bring up that, yes, if you haven't already gotten the clue from me desoldering the switches earlier, this is not a hot swap PCB. And Stylo Studios does not plan on selling a hot swap version either. They do have this in both ASNI and ISO layouts, but nothing's stopping you from adding your own KL hot swap sockets if you want. And for beginners, I know the thought of, soldering your own keyboard seems very daunting and complex, but trust me, it's super simple. It just takes some time and concentration. I can then go through and pop in the rest of my switches into the plate and down through my PCB, making sure the pins aren't bent and they're being led down through the pin holes. And once they're all installed, I can go through and then finish off the soldering process. Then really, just like that, the majority of the build's already done. Securing the PCB and plate to the top frame is done by 8 tiny screws, but before we mount it to the bottom frame, I want to add a layer of PE foam inside. Mainly because it's not as thick and as dense as something like your traditional arts and crafts EVA foam, but the PE foam layer is going to be thin enough that'll still provide a thock that I'm looking for without deadening the sound profile. This is usually applied between the PCB and the plate as a popular mod, but heads up, doing this way sounds and works about the same. Now, since we have a daughter board for a USB-C connector up in the Beak itself, I have to reconnect that cable to the bottom back of our PCB just to give our Beak some life, and then we can finish the frame itself. We have 4 larger screws in the outer 4 corners, and one of the newer additions that they added to this prototype to help the frame close properly is the addition now of the 4 inner screw holes, so that the board's frame doesn't rattle and you don't have any gaps in between. Once that's all done, I'm going to be adding back our large volume knob on the top right side of the board. Again, these aesthetic choices may not be for everybody, but for me, It's the functionality that counts, and as I said before, I really enjoy the looks of this board. They do include a tiny little hex wrench so we can lock down our volume knob onto the rotary encoder. This is so it doesn't just pop off, obviously, on you. And yes, as you can see, the matte finish to the board definitely is a fingerprint magnet, so always gotta have a microfiber cloth on hand. Then lastly, the finishing touch is adding our keycaps. From drop, I picked up the white on black GMK Katakana set. These are obviously a very different set than what you're probably used to seeing with these Japanese Katakana legends, but I figured they'd be the perfect pairing here for this novelty board. By the way, the Beak 6.5 is also available in a white finish, which I think these caps would look amazing on as well. And no, I have no idea what I'll be typing. No, I cannot read Japanese, and yes, I'm doing it anyway. For our final piece for the escape key, which should always be a nice artisan, I think, I'll be going with this nice Rama Works cap from their GMK Bushido set. Again, I don't know what this says or what it stands for, but it fits the build, looks super nice, and as an accent piece, I think it looks gorgeous on this board here, and it just complements that glossy finish I added to the brass weight underneath, even though you can only see it from the sides. Hey, it's my build, don't worry about it. Then, just like that, we're all done with our Beak 6.5, and I'll say it again. I know this layout and design isn't gonna be for everybody, but I am 100% all about it. You got your standard 60% layout here with the additional arrow keys, plus a necessity for me at least, a nice volume knob above it. There's no RGB to our PCB, and really we don't need it. It wouldn't add much overall. The USB-C does get seated a bit into the beak itself where that weight is at the tip, but when you're talking like first impressions and looks, with all the lines and angles going on here, it just leads your eyes all around the board. And I think design-wise, it does a stellar job. Even though it's only available in black and white, you know, I would love to see some other colors later on down the line. And I will say, just for the sake of my build, since I have the artisan cap, I would have liked to have seen that top portion of the beak where it's black. I would have loved if that was brass as well, but hey, that's just me. All right, so now we're gonna do a sound test of the Beak 6.5 with my lube and switch filmed Pulsar black hole tactile switches. Man, like I said numerous times, these Pulsar black hole switches, despite the bizarre name, sound and feel fantastic. Yes, even though I lubed them and applied the switch film, honestly, like I said before, it's really not worth all the extra effort because stock, right out of the bag, they feel and sound pretty much identical to these without all the extra work they put into it, or I put into it. But yes, this keyboard feels and sounds great to me. Again, with these Duroc V2s that Alex Sotos also lubed and applied the dielectric grease to, I'm just loving this final result. Again, I really would love to see them possibly add different colors later on down the line, even though the group buy right now only has black and white available. Kind of a bummer, but I understand for their first major launch like this, maybe if it does, super well, we'll see another version down the line with more colors and options and stuff. And even though these keycaps are not gonna be for everybody, and the board's not even gonna be for everybody, for me personally, as it being, my build, the choices that I put into this, I'm loving the final results. All right, so as we wrap this up, like I mentioned in the beginning, this is still a prototype build because it's in group buy. It's obviously not out yet to the masses. And one of the things that kind of bothers me that I would like to see them somehow change later on down the line is with the wobble. It's not a big deal when you're actually using it in real use, but if you do press on either of the corners because of the beak and the weight, being more elevated on that backside and not evenly across the whole top, it does sort of shift back and forth. So I'm not too sure how they can modify or change that for the final release. Again, unless you're drastically pressing in the top corners, it's not gonna be an issue, but it's still something I noticed when I was putting in the switches and putting on the keycaps and stuff, that it did have some wobble to it. So I'm really loving it. Again, when it comes to these custom keyboard builds and the whole keyboard community and market out there, it is all down to preference. That's why I built this. That's why I accepted, this keyboard to check out and stuff, because I'm digging it. I love the functionality, I love the design, and even though it's not gonna be for everybody, you might not like it, guess what? You don't gotta buy it. I know I would, I'm loving it. Just maybe give us different colors and mix and match the knob colors and maybe add that top beak as a brass color too, But alright guys, that'll wrap it up for my build of the Stylo Studio Beak 6.5. Hope you enjoyed. If you want to check it out in the last few days of the group buy before it wraps up, I'll have that listed for you in the description down below so you can put your order in. Don't miss out. You know how these keyboards are. They're here and they'll be gone for a while and you can't get your hands on it. So don't miss the window. If you like this build, give it a big thumbs up, show your support. Feel free to follow me on Twitter at randomfrankp. And lastly, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. Hope y'all enjoyed. Have a good day.